So a huge big welcome to everyone here, and also to those that are watching on the live stream or perhaps watching the replay as well. My name is Sal Holden. All the ladies in the room know me, so that's really lovely. But for anybody that is watching the live stream that hasn't met me before, I'm Sal Holden, and my coaching business is Abundant Heart Coaching, and I am here to really support people and support women in particular about helping them overcome burnout, because it's something I've personally experienced, and it's terrible when we're going through it, and it really can impact our sense of self-confidence, our sense of self-worth, productivity, affect our ability to create an income, whether that's through work or career or our own business. Even more dire straits, I think, if we are running our own business and we're not having the energy that we actually need and want during our life as well. And what I know for sure is that the women that I've helped thousands of women over the last 12 years, but the women that end up really extremely burnout tend to have three different traits, and those traits are: they care deeply about others, they want to make a difference in the world, but they really take on others' challenges and problems almost as their own. So it's this over responsibility that can really end up playing out. So they have a huge big heart, they care deeply, they're generally very sensitive to others' energies, which makes us susceptible to want to help others and also want to make a difference as well. But that also then lends to that over responsibility that plays out. So there's those three biggest things: is we're sensitive in our energy, particularly to others' energy generally, and also have that big caring heart, as well as feel overly responsible or feel like everything's my fault if I don't fix it. Like, I've got to be, and I can't let others down, I can't disappoint others. So who resonates with that? Maybe just send some love hearts. Hey Lynn, hey Abby, great to have you guys on as well. So we all know, like, obviously how that can really impact. So just in terms of like what burnout actually impacts, it impacts our mental health. I found this out, like, I was absolutely floored and shocked at how much it impacted my mental health. As somebody that is transformational mindset, coach, I had to work so hard every day just to keep my head above, it's to stop from drowning, if that makes sense. So that was one of the biggest challenges that I really noticed, and I thought, oh my God, like, how are other people coping with this if they don't already have the tools and strategies that I had previously as well? So all of those things are really important to be aware of, because it keeps us in this downward spiral. Then the worse we feel, the more fear, the more worry, the more the mind goes into that hypervigilant state of everything that could go wrong and everything that's not working, and all those extra fears get really big. Number two is like how much capacity and resilience that we have. You may find when you're feeling really stretched, and certainly I experienced a smidgen of this on the weekend after snowboarding, and my nervous system was like shot, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like teary, and I lost that sense of resilience and just feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get through the day kind of feeling. Obviously that's exacerbated tenfold when we're going through massive amounts of burnout as well. Our cognitive function. Many women come to me and they say, I can't think clearly, like, I've lost my memory, I can't remember what I'm going to say, like, I'll be mid-sentence and I'll lose track of, or I'll walk into the room, I think this is everyone though, I'll walk into the room and forget what it was that I was going to get. Like, the cognitive function is really, really impaired, and a lot of that is because the cortisol. Hey Danny, great to have you here. I love your colours. looking nice and vibey today. But the cognitive function and the ability to remain focused is also massively impacted, and that's generally because testosterone levels are also impacted, which impacts our sense of confidence, our sense of self, our capacity to do things, and our ability to get things done, because we end up feeling so scattered and almost like losing self in that as well. Hormone balance obviously is massive, particularly around perimenopause or menopause. It's exacerbated even more because it actually, when we're going through massive amounts of burnout, it's diminishing our hormone levels massively. Like that, I was shocked when I got my hormone levels tested, not through standard GP, through functional testing. And I was like menopausal, like even though I still had a full cycle, everything else, but my hormone levels were showing that I was actually menopausal, and I was just like, oh my God, like it was just such a shock. So polarity in relationships often impacts, like, obviously libido as well, and we lose our sex drive because all those hormones are smashed, and you're just like, man, not another thing on the list, like all of those things. But our ability to obviously handle stress, ability to self-regulate our emotions, we become more and more teary, and physical well-being obviously is massively impacted, and just that drive and that energy to actually get done what you're wanting to get done in a day, or to be able to put your energy, if you have your own business or your own goals or something that you're really striving for or wanting to create in your life, it's nearly impossible to do when your physical energy is absolutely smashed and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed with what I've got on, let alone creating something new. So all of those things can be massively impacted, and the biggest thing is most women lose their clarity and their decision-making ability, as well as that sense of joy and that passion in life, and just laughing again. Something I hear again and again, women coming through the program, oh my God, I'm so serious, like I can't remember the last time I laughed. So all of those things are definitely impacted from burnout. Not only that, our immune system, we become more susceptible to colds, to flus, to lots of other things going on there as well. So most of you have heard my story. I won't go into that too much, but basically I just wanted to speak into it a little bit just to explain the 3 areas where burnout can occur. And often it's after like a major kind of life crisis or a major life event, often is the tipping point, but there's often a long lead up to it where we're chronically fatigued, or there's just that low level chronic stress in our life, whether that's running our business, whether it's a challenging relationship, whether it's financial stresses. For me, it was being a single mum for like 12 years. All of those things often can compound where the sympathetic nervous system is switched on. We're in that fight, flight, can't stop, got to keep going, and we don't feel that we can actually rest or pause. And then often there is a major crisis in our life, such as death of a loved one, financial challenge, such as loss of job, or change or structure in our work environment. It can be loss of a relationship. There's so many different factors, obviously, that can come into play there, or a significant trauma, such as a car accident, or something interpersonal in a relationship. So all of those things can be, that often is that tipping point. And for me, it was 3 grief events in the 1 week. I had a relationship breakdown. I had my youngest daughter moved out. We were still completely fine, but it was a grief event for me as a mama. I love my girls dearly, and it was just like so huge in the moment. And I also had a really good friend pass away in the same week. So all of those things compounded on top of all the pressure that I put myself under for all those years, and it really was my undoing. But even deeper than that, it's actually early developmental trauma. So our childhood experience, and for most people, and I would say like 99% of people, most people were raised without parents that were actually emotionally intelligent, that didn't know how to actually regulate their own nervous system. And so we're learning, our nervous system is actually learning how to be. And so if mum or dad is super stressed, we're learning to be constantly in that fight-flight state. And we start to regulate our system to their system and learn that that is how life is. So all of these things compound massively then, where over a period of time, and what the point of burnout actually occurs when the sympathetic nervous system has been on for such a long time and the body's like, dude, I can't keep doing this. And so what it does is it jams the parasympathetic nervous system on, but not, there's 2 parts to the parasympathetic nervous system. One is rest, digest, rejuvenate, I'm good. It's the recovery phase. But there's also another part to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our freeze response. And that's when we feel blocked, paralyzed, stuck, resistant, not wanting to do stuff, because the body is going, I can't keep going in this other direction. So now I've got to bring in the freeze response to actually stop you. And so then we're locked into, it's the brake and the accelerator on in your nervous system at the same time. That is the point of chronic illness. Any illness is caused from those 2 things being locked on at the same time. So healing the nervous system and being aware of how to heal the nervous system is absolutely paramount. And that comes back to obviously regulating our emotions, working with our thoughts that are creating stresses, what are we focusing on, all of those different things as well. And being able to pause, as you said, Kylie, oh my God, it's not very often I just get to sit. So I'll run through a few different ways, like 10 different ways that you can really increase your energy and start to notice those pauses, start to orientate yourself back to the here and now, because the mind is often projecting into the future. Oh my God, what's for tea? What's going on with the kids? What do I have to do tomorrow? What do I have to do next week? What do I have to do to start a business? Like all of those different things. Or it's stuck in the past going, oh my God, that was terrible when this happened, or that was terrible. And we're not actually in the present moment. And I know like everyone logically knows about the present moment, but actually being able to be here in the moment is one of the most important things in healing the nervous system and starting to sense a feeling of safety within our body. Because if you didn't feel safe growing up being yourself, and most people didn't, I think I grew up in a super loving childhood. I was very, very blessed. And I know that there was definitely parts of me that triggered my mum. And, that she didn't, necessarily, she felt challenged by, or there was behaviours within me that she felt challenged by. So again, all of those things, it's kind of like, well, I'm not safe to be me. Now I have to put the mask up. Now I have to become someone or something other than the truth of who I am. And it's so exhausting to wear those facades and those masks. And we go into the people pleasing out of pure need to survive, because I need acceptance validation from my parents in order to fit in, belong and be accepted, and therefore loved, and therefore survive. So it's all driven by a deep, deep programming, and that's where we really want to look at and heal the belief systems as well. So some common symptoms, just quickly before we get into those 10 things, I promise I'm going to get there soon. Just a couple of things to be really, really aware of in the common symptoms. As I mentioned before, a lot of the impacts can also be the symptoms. So low cognitive function, insomnia is a typical one. The wired but tired feeling. You're laying down, you're like, oh my God, I'm so freaking tired, but my mind is just racing. It's like, I'm kind of getting some nods here, like, oh my God, that's me. Or, you might fall asleep straight away. If you're like me, you'll like hit the pillow and you're out like a light, but then you wake up at like between 1 and 3 a.m. typically, and the mind's racing and whirring, and then you can't get back to sleep then as well. So again, long-term sleep deprivation is one of the biggest impacts that causes that burnout, and it is from that nervous system, the whirring underneath of the sympathetic nervous system of go, 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 got to get things done, can't stop, can't rest, got too much to do. And then the freeze response of the body going, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I have to stop. So the cognitive function, the exhaustion, like the ongoing fatigue where a good night's sleep is just not helping you bounce back. That's one of obviously the main indicators, where you feel that you're dragging yourself throughout the day. You're waking up maybe feeling overwhelmed, dread, anxiety, feelings of depression is all very, very normal parts and symptoms of burnout as well. So, and often I find that mental illness is misdiagnosed when women come to me and they're like, oh, my doctor said this or my doctor said that. And again, nothing against Western medicine. I just feel it's very limited in its testing. It's great for, obviously, if I cut my leg open, I'm going to go get that fixed today, certainly. But all of those things can be really challenging because the tests and the deeper understanding of what's actually really going on just isn't there yet in Western medicine, and so it does limit the amount that the doctors can do and how they can refer with what's actually going on as well. So number one thing to massively increase your energy, check in and listen to your body daily. And really, when I say listen, not just listen and go, oh, I'm so exhausted, but actually take that information and do something about it, because that's the two biggest things that I notice for women that go into massive adrenal fatigue and burnout is denial and disassociation. And really, we've been taught to deny how we feel, got to keep the happy face on, got to keep the brave face on, got to make everyone else happy, all of those things. And disassociation as a coping mechanism, where we've become so disassociated from how we actually feel within ourselves, because we've just got to push through, we've got to keep going, so we disassociate and we learn to ignore how we're actually really, really, really feeling. And again, we lose alignment in our own lives when we're actually doing that too, because if we're not in touch with our feelings, how do we know whether something's really supportive or something's really harmful for us? And often that can go hand in hand with really challenging relationships where our nervous system's hardwired to be in a challenging relationship because of that entrainment at a younger age of this is just normal, this is just life, of living in this stress response. And we ignore the warning signs, we ignore the red flags, we ignore the things that our intuition is going, this is not good for me, but we keep doing those same behaviours because we're in denial and disassociation. So by tuning in, listening to your body, and even when you first start doing this, if it's not been a general practice for you, making sure that you actually really listen to what's going on, even if you choose not to implement it, but choose that consciously, if that makes sense. So by listening in, and even if it's just like, wow, I feel so tired today, I just literally want to like lay down right now, and I'll talk about like following your biological impulses as well, because that's that inner guidance of like, if you're standing and you prefer to be sitting, like listen to that, follow that, that's your own intuitive guidance. It might sound so simple and so small, but every time you follow that, then your body, you're listening at a deeper level, and you'll get bigger and bigger messages, which is really, or you'll hear them. The messages are always there. It's just, are we tuned in, or are we so used to denying them or disassociating or not hearing them and just ignoring and suppressing and pushing down? So really following.
Next question.
Yeah, sure, John.
This is weird because you're right here and you're like, well, like what if, like, say, like in the nature of your job, like you're trying to listen to your body, but obviously like you can't like stop working because like it's client based.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So it's recognizing that and then doing what you can outside of that. Like I totally get that. And if I'm on a call like with somebody, like if I'm, you know, doing my role as well, or just even right now, I'm like, oh yeah, a seat would be good right now. But it's taking care of yourself when you can and making sure that you're not continually putting that off. If you notice that you're continually putting that off, then tune in and listen to why am I not taking care of my body, or why am I continually putting that off? Because like there are certain, and particularly, you know, for women that have young children as well, you know, you've got to get up, you've got to respond to your child in the middle of the night if they need, but it's kind of like, well, where can I take things off my plate, or where can I take things a little bit easier, or just even 5 minutes of you know, making sure that you're not working through lunch perhaps, or not rushing around doing all the shopping and all the groceries and everything at lunch, but you're actually taking time out to rest, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. So 5 or 10 minutes, I'm like a huge fan of an 8-minute power nap. My kids are like, how do you fall asleep and wake up in 8 minutes? And I'm like, I can do it. So it's like really shifting it to, well, what can I do, rather than, well, I can't do that because I'm busy, or I can't do that because I've got all these things. It's like, what could I do? And if I've got like a lot on, say like last week, and then I was just telling the other ladies, I went snowboarding on the weekend and my nervous system was fried from it. Like I was just like, oh my God. So this week, like I've gone to bed super early, like 7:30, which sounds ridiculous.
Like, compromising something. Like if you're working all day, then like you have a bad day, then go to bed early.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because it's like tuning in, and then it's like, then you feel better the next day, and then you're more easy, you know, it's easy to cope and all of those things. And I found even for me from a productivity level, you know, like if I'm trying to push through and do something that would normally take me half an hour might take me 2 hours to do. Whereas if I go have a 10 or 20 minute nap, I can come back and I can get that thing done in half an hour. That's productive. Like now I'm not wasting 2 hours, I'm getting 20, 30 minutes of rest, and I'm still getting the thing done in an hour. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's mitigating wherever you can. And pre-plan too, like when you've had events in the past, so you've had, you know, a friend's birthday or something, you've gone out and it's like, okay, the next day I'm not going, you know, and obviously pre-plan that. I'm certainly not saying not to show up to work if you're rusted in, but it's like pre-plan that ahead and go, yeah, that didn't work really well for me. How can I take better care of my body next time? So using examples of when you can actually do that. I know for me, like if I run a retreat, I always book out the following day or two, whereas previously I didn't do that, and I'd be like coming out of a retreat, I'm exhausted, and then go straight into client calls the following day. So it's just being aware, and we don't always get it right, but it's like noticing and just small incremental improvements. Does that make sense? Yeah. Number 2 is let go of over responsibility, and this is like really healing those deeper beliefs of I've got to take care of everyone, I'm responsible for everyone, I can't be happy until everyone else is happy. That's a really big challenging one, right? Healing your nervous system is number 3, which is really healing like old trauma, denial, disassociation. Anytime that we find that we're in, trying to prove ourselves or striving. Striving is an interesting one. It can be from a healthy energy, but often it is driven by fear of I'm not enough. If it's being driven by fear of not enough, it's actually very detrimental to our system, simply because like if we're feeling led by inspiration, that's a very different energy that we're using as fuel, rather than, oh my God, I've got to do this out of fear of failure or fear of not being enough. That constant striving is one of the biggest things that really is kind of like standing behind ourselves and pushing ourselves forward. And if somebody came up and pushed me in the back right now, I'm going to resist. And so that's that brake and accelerator on at the same time as well. So really, why do I choose to do this? Why do I want to do this? Why am I excited to do this as well? That can be very helpful. Healing your nervous system as well is those pauses. It's stopping during the day, and even just like looking around at your environment. It's key. It's making sure that you feel safe in your environment. Can I be me in this environment? Can I be me in my relationship or in my home? Making sure that you've got that environmental safety. Then number 2 is, do I feel safe in my body? Because again, when we've been hardwired, when our nervous system is regulated to not feel safe, to be ourselves, then it's really hard. And it's been like 12 years since, no, longer, maybe 14 years since I was in a DV situation. And from that, it's literally only been the last 6 months of living with my partner, living with a male. I was like, oh my God, my body does not feel safe. And he's an incredibly safe person, but my body was so used to going, oh my God, a man, no, I'm not safe. So really teaching the body and really feeling into that. And even if it's like my big toe feels safe or my little finger feels safe, and then expanding that feeling throughout the body. And then number 3 is to heal the nervous system. We've really got to create space to feel what it is that we're actually feeling and to allow it to come up. The more that we do that, the more you're dealing with the day-to-day stuff, and it's not compounding, compressing, and then suddenly now I've got an implosion or an explosion that's happening. Does that make sense as well? And number 4 is being authentic. So obviously setting healthy boundaries, articulating and communicating effectively what we actually really need for ourselves, using our voice. And for me, when we're in that freeze response, it is really hard to get our words out sometimes. That is like a lot of the challenge when we're in that particular place, or we feel, there might be the belief systems that are getting in the way of being able to really articulate. But first, it's got to start with us, because we can't share or ask for support or for help from somebody else if we're not first clear, what do I actually need for me? And that goes back to number 1. You can see how these all interlink, right? Of listening to our body and listening to what do I actually need, what feels right for me today. Number 5 is getting mentoring and support to heal the body. As you may have gathered by this point, there's a lot that is kind of interlinked, but also the belief systems. And often when we've been running a belief system, it's just our reality. We believe that's just how life is. That's just how life is for me. I don't know any different from this. It can't be any different from this. So all of those things keep us locked into these reoccurring cycles and patterns of events in our life that are causing us distress. So really working with somebody that can help us with our blind spots. That's why I've invested a truckload in my own mentoring and coaching and courses and things like that, because we all have blind spots as humans and we don't know what we don't know. And often it's kind of like a fish, a fish doesn't know that it's like swimming in water. It doesn't know any different from being in water because it's always been in water. And that's what our blind spots are kind of like. Like if we've always lived it, if we've always done it, it's just the way it is. We don't actually understand that it can be different. So all of those things are really important, and healing the body physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually is key in getting mentoring when you're working with somebody as well. So unless they're addressing those 4 areas, it's really hard to heal the body from a holistic perspective, and generally there's only very short-term results that will actually happen. And it's why if somebody's just having say counselling or psychology sessions, and I'm an advocate for those things, I think that those things are great, but if that's all that's being done and past belief systems aren't being worked on, or even reducing inflammation in the body isn't being worked on, then we're missing some really, really big pieces in that healing spectrum. Because if we continue to eat rubbish and things like that, you're still going to wake up, you're going to feel inflamed in your body, you're going to feel like rubbish, you know, you're going to experience the sugar crashes, like all of those different things too. So really important. Number 6 is question your unresourceful beliefs. How do I feel with this thought? How do I feel without the thought? I'm not enough. If I believe that thought, I feel like rubbish. Like, it is so disempowering. I feel terrible. I feel like a failure. I feel like I'm not enough. I just want to shrink. I want to hide. Generally, it induces shame within me. All of those things. If I don't have that thought, it's just like, oh my God, I feel so free. I feel light. I feel happy. I can feel like myself. And there's a very, like a much deeper, in-depth process that I take people through with that. But at a base core level, you know, is this belief serving me? Is this belief empowering me? Or does it make me feel like rubbish? And if it makes me feel like rubbish, I've actually got the power to change that. And that is, I think, super powerful in itself, because we often believe, like I mentioned before, you know, things just are the way that they are. Number 7 is drink plenty of water. I know this is such a basic one. Everyone's like, oh, I know I should be drinking so much more water, but are you actually doing it? Good 2 to 3 litres a day, really good quality water. I love electrolytes reduced water. It has extra antioxidant powers and everything in it is amazing, and it really alkalizes the body at another level, which is really powerful. But really just getting extra water into your body. We're 70-80% water. The body needs water to function well, for everything to be flowing, and alkalizing the body. So using foods such as citrus, green leafies, anything like that, too much animal protein, caffeine, alcohol, sugar, processed foods, all drive acid within the body. When we've got a lot of cortisol happening from stress, even more acids occurring in the body. So doing what we can. Deep breathing is another way that we can alkalize the body as well. So obviously when we're stressed, we're doing shallow breathing. We're not having that full oxygen exchange, because that takes place in the lower 2/3 of the lungs, which means we're just really recycling stale air in the lungs, and the body's not really getting like that deep oxygenation. And cancer cannot survive in an oxygenated environment. So if we're deep breathing, you know, it's one of the fastest things that we can do to really support our body's wellness and well-being. Moving your body in a way that feels good. This is so important. For years and years, I beat myself up, and it was like I was almost like trying to beat myself into shape. Does anybody else resonate with that? It's such a really hard energy to be in, and it really comes from that self-punishment and non-acceptance of who we are. That's certainly what I found for myself as well. So the more that I loved me and appreciated me, and then chose to move my body from a place of self-love, again, it's always the energy with which I'm choosing to do something with, which makes the biggest difference as to whether that behaviour is going to exhaust me or give me energy and bring energy into my life. So moving your body in a way that feels good. Hit some tunes on. You know, music is one of the fastest ways that we can actually raise our vibration, raise our frequency, increase our energy, particularly if you're feeling a bit sluggish in the morning. And sometimes, you know, we might need a couple of wind-up tunes. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, you don't want to go straight to the super happy music, because it's just like, oh God, I can't deal with that, because it's too big of a jump vibrationally, emotionally, in frequency. And so having some warm-up tunes, you know, could be really helpful too. So creating like a playlist and just having a good old dance. I think that is one of the most powerful things that we can do as women, to get in touch with our body, to be back in our body, because when we're in that fight-flight state, often we're ungrounded in our auric field, we're not actually connected, we're not actually here. And if you've ever run into walls, you feel scattered, you're kind of like vague, all of those things, that means you're ungrounded in that moment. So you want to get back into your body, feel your body, wriggle your toes, look around and orientate yourself to your environment is one of the fastest ways to come back to the here and now. And the power of gratitude is number 9. So gratitude is it's really at the top of the emotional guidance scale, and is one of the fastest ways of bringing us back to a place of thank you, universe, for taking care of the stress. That's what I do. I just handball anything that's worrying me or stressing me out. My van broke down the other day. It's just like, thanks, universe, for taking care of that. I did have my own human emotional reaction around that, and released that from my nervous system at the time. But at the end of the day, it's like really handballing that and then doing whatever we feel inspired to do to take action around whatever. But you cannot solve a problem from the same level of energy that created it, or the same level of emotion that created the problem. So we have to come back to that different place, and sometimes it can be challenging if we're in a very low energy to reach those states of gratitude. But the more you practice gratitude, the easier it is to jump there. And to really feel it, because there's nothing worse than writing who's written in a gratitude journal and it's like empty words, or it's just like, oh. So really getting in touch with that sense of gratitude, even just for the most basic of things, can really make a difference as well. And having that as a solid practice definitely will help energy every day. And certainly when I was in the height of my burnout, really getting my mind to focus on things that were working, what was working in my life, what was good in my life, was so important, because the hypervigilance and the fear from the ego survival mind and being such low energy constantly wanted to look back to what was going wrong, what could hurt me, what could harm me, because I was feeling so fragile at the time that the mind really gets locked into that hypervigilance. So the more we can focus in what is working and what's going well, or what am I excited about, or what can I bring into my life that I'm excited about, is really, really powerful. And lastly, it's to celebrate every single step forward. People often laugh at me when I tell this story, but it's one of the most powerful ways that I found of getting that hit of dopamine. And in the studies that they've actually done around addiction, a lot of people that actually have bigger addictions was because of early developmental trauma, and they didn't actually, their body has a lower capacity to create dopamine in their system. This can lead us to any form of addiction. For me, it was emotional eating. And when I really understood this, I was just like, oh my God. So by finding other ways that you can create dopamine in your system and feel good within yourself can also be another way of no longer needing the addiction as a hit of dopamine as well. So there was a time in my life where I'd missed a couple of big goals. I was feeling a bit disappointed in myself, and I'm just like, man, I feel flat as. And I thought, no, I'm going to celebrate everything I do. So I started washing the dishes. There was like knives and forks. I did a fist pump for every fork I washed, for every spoon I washed, for every plate I washed, and for every one that I dried up. So it was probably, 50 fist pumps maybe by the end of it. I was on top of the world by the end of it. I know it sounds basic, but it is a game changer as well. It's just like, yes, ready for the day. Yes, ate a great brekkie. Yes, had another drink of water. Like, really celebrate all the tiny little things that you do to support yourself every single day. Even those moments of tuning in, listening to your body and going, oh, I'm feeling a bit tired, I'm going to go to bed early tonight. Yes, because all of that, dopamine is the reward for the brain. And so the brain goes, that felt good, let's do it again. So it's one way to really start to anchor in these good behaviors. And when I say good behaviors, I'm not meaning right or wrong, but what is really supporting your system and what feels really good for you to be able to increase your energy as well. So all of these things plus a lot more I'm actually covering off in my brand new 28-day mini Thrive course. So I have my 12-week course, which is very in-depth, but I do also have a 28-day course which I'll be launching on the 17th of October, which I'm really excited about, because it will really give people a very solid base level that they can go back and look at again and again as well to really support them. I'll be diving into more things to support the nervous system, to heal the nervous system, and what you need to do around all of that, as well as obviously these other key components in alkalizing the body, coming out of, sorry, just lost my voice there, that was really weird, coming out of that fight flight, and how to actually start to regulate your nervous system better so that you can be in that really nice calm state, the body can rest, recover, rejuvenate, you can have better quality sleep, all of those things, and get the tools and the strategies to heal your belief systems and heal any past trauma as well. So if anybody's interested in that, or anybody that's watching the replay, please either send me a DM or comment below, or reach out to me either on Messenger, or you can come chat to me now if that feels appropriate for you as well. And thank you all for being here. And any particular questions at all that anybody's got? It was like, oh my God. I'm like, I have no idea what the time. Oh, I didn't do too bad. I'm like 10 minutes over.
I remember last time.
Oh, I know.
Literally, it was on time.
On time. Oh, that's good. Yeah, because I was like, oh. I end up like giving so much information, but yes. So I will say goodbye on here. We'll finish.